Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to have you in on Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Damon Barr, and you can join us today on Hail Varsity. We hope getting ready for Nebraska and Wisconsin. Some updates to pass along there. And nothing official from the University of Nebraska or the University of Wisconsin. But it's a little dicey right now. Some indication on Twitter from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel Wisconsin beat writer that things may be up in the air for Nebraska, Wisconsin. Again, no confirmation or really comment from Nebraska's side of things. So we'll keep you updated there. I'll report here shortly what is the issue, because you've got the positivity threshold to get into. And we'll talk with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic in about 15 minutes. We'll talk some Husker football with Eric Warfield, standout Husker and NFLer for the Chiefs, get his take on what he's seeing from Nebraska football. And then Barry Alvarez, my conversation with the Nebraska standout linebacker and Wisconsin athletic director. Barry's schedule is that of an athletic director. So as much as I would love to have Barry Alvarez live at 5:25, this was my phone conversation with Barry Alvarez at 9:15 this morning. So just let me lay it out for you, a preview, and we'll hear from Barry Alvarez here coming up. But when I was talking to Barry, he laid out how everyone gets rapid tested in the morning so you can get your result and go practice. Wisconsin was practicing this morning. And 18 hours ago, Paul Chryst was not worried about not being able to play the game. What's happened since yesterday? What's happened since this morning? What's happened since our conversation with Barry Alvarez? Nothing official again. But that would just be the ultimate 2020 thing, to gear up, have a chance to still take on a really good Wisconsin football team with their fourth-string quarterback, or instead of the Wildcat, the Wild Badger formation. And, you want to play this game, but you want health and safety to rule the day as well. So you had a tweet out for Jeff Portrikis. Jeff's really talented writer, does a great job covering Wisconsin. He's been on the show in the past. And with Jeff, he put this tweet out about an hour ago. Hashtag Badgers game at Nebraska may not be played. Stay tuned. A little bit more information on that. You have a reminder, if the Badgers can't play at Nebraska, it's officially a no contest. It's not a forfeit. And when it comes to handling games that are canceled due to COVID, I mean, you have the Big Ten protocols. And we know that Graham Mertz tested positive a second time. He had the rapid test, so they went through the more invasive test. That came back positive. That was put out by Portrikis and Dennis Dodd. They were the ones to get that information. So that means Mertz is done for 21 days. 14 days recovery, protocol, quarantine, and then the Big Ten tacks on an extra 7 days for the myocarditis side of things. That's why it's super stringent. It's 21 days. So and this tweet from Parker Gabriel, and he's a native Wisconsinite as well. And, Parker's able to communicate this about 40 minutes ago on Twitter. At this point, Nebraska's brass has not been informed about any change in status for Saturday's game. Nebraska practice today. We'll hear from Coach Chinander. We'll hear from Coach Lubick. We'll hear from some of the players, McCaffrey as well. So when it comes to the Big Ten protocols, you know, if your team is in that red dial area, there's an auto 7-day pause. But even if you get into the orange, with the Big Ten language, teams need to consider how viable it is to play on top of the travel. So what we don't know, and I did not ask Barry this morning, hey, Coach, what's your team's positivity rate? I got the politely go to hell. I'm not telling you what the quarterback situation is. Okay? And Barry was great. Barry Alvarez was awesome. Stay tuned for that in an hour. But at this juncture in the morning when we talked, things were okay, and Wisconsin was practicing. What is the team positivity rate? What is that threshold? Are they above 5%? And you did the math with, say Nebraska football, when we first discussed protocol and positivity rate, for Nebraska, 8 or 9 players on a roster of 150 would put you over where you got to shut down. So it'll be interesting to see what goes forward. I pray that Nebraska can play football. So this is the latest from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel with the Nebraska-Wisconsin game. The Badger positivity rate, Nebraska and Wisconsin's game is in jeopardy. The Wisconsin COVID positivity rate, it's close. It's not at, per the Journal-Sentinel, but it's close to the level of forcing a shutdown. This just about 10 minutes ago from Jeff Portrikis. So Wisconsin's game Saturday in danger of being canceled, according to a source with the knowledge. That was not Barry's attitude or feel this morning. That tells you how fluid the situation is. So you had the report out about Graham Mertz. You had the report about Chase Wolf, both having tested positive for COVID. According to a second source, Wisconsin's test positivity rate is close to that threshold that would force the team to stop regular practice and competition for a minimum of 7 days. We were just talking about that here, if the red dial is hit. So that would obviously blow up what's going to happen Saturday in Lincoln if they hit and go over that threshold. If the game's not played, it would be considered a no contest rather than a forfeit. And here's the Big Ten protocols. And when it comes to team positivity rate, the number of positive tests divided by the total number of tests administered. So your positivity rate, green, is 0 through 2%. Your team positivity rate, the orange category, is 2 through 5%. Anything at 5 or over is red. So when it comes to the population positivity rate, the number of positive individuals divided by total number is a little bit different here. Green is 0 through 3.5%, orange 3.5 through 7.5%, and then red's over 7.5%. So when you get into that green category, teams continue with normal practice and competition. It feels like either this morning when Wisconsin was practicing, when we were talking to Barry Alvarez, things were either in the green, or if you were in orange, orange must proceed with caution and enhance COVID prevention. When it comes to red, teams got to stop regular practice, and you've seen and heard teams shut down. It's happened in the Big 12. So there's no decision as of yet with Nebraska, Wisconsin. And again, there's been no comment or statement from Nebraska, but you have a situation here that the game is in jeopardy due to Wisconsin's positivity rate. You've got the starting quarterback. You've got the third-team quarterback, both positive. Who have they been around? Who has contracted COVID? Who else has contracted COVID at Wisconsin? Can join us at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. So you got a 7-day average. Based on that 7-day rolling average to get to 5%, you got to have a lot of guys come down with this. So we shall see. Let's dive into a little bit of Coach Chenander here while we have some time. We'll spend some more time with Mitch Sherman, and we'll see if there's anything from Nebraska. Here's what I think is going to happen. Wisconsin's going to see how things are tomorrow when they test, because their guys go in, they practice in the morning, they test, and they do the rapid test. Who else is positive tomorrow morning? And you're going to have to eventually make a call if that rate continues to go up. And to be honest with you, I mean, it was Saturday feels like one of those games you got to have for Nebraska, as in take on Wisconsin, first-team quarterback, third-team quarterback, go find a way to beat the boogeyman that is Wisconsin. You're going from an undermanned Wisconsin team that's going to go brass knuckles on you when it comes to physical football in a phone booth to, man, you may not even get a chance to play them. And there's no makeup, and we go back to the Big Ten allowing zero margin for error, allowing no bye weeks or makeup dates put into this schedule. And if Wisconsin resumes play, assuming they shut down play, what's the timeline there? Do they go into red for a week and then move into next week? Do they get slapped and are they shut down for – how many guys are shut down for 21 days? Do they just kind of crawl off to the side? All interesting thoughts. But it'd be nice to figure out a way to get this game in. And hopefully if you're a football fan, you don't see any more positivity cases rise up and call this thing off. Nebraska's proceeding and practicing like they're going to play. They're proceeding and practicing like, it really doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Nebraska's got to be ready for a physical run game. And when it comes to Wisconsin and that quarterback situation, here's Coach Chenander. Nebraska's been going about their business, trying to figure out a way to slow down Wisconsin in their run game.
Ever since the news kind of broke on Twitter when it was kind of a rumor, it wasn't really substantiated yet, the first thought popped in my head was, they'll keep the same game plan. They're a well-coached football team. They'll put whoever's next up in quarterback in and run the same scheme, maybe a little less passing and a little more running. They'll do that. Or option B, the second thing that went through our head is Garrett Groshek will go in there at quarterback. I know he was I think he was a high school quarterback. Every time in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a play where it's a double pass or a flea flicker or something. He's been the guy that's going to be the thrower. A couple of them have been blown dead, because of false starts or whatever, but he was going to be the thrower guy. So I think he can throw the football, and I think you're right about the Wildcat. They're definitely going to, I would assume, I don't know, I'm not in their meetings, but I would assume they'd try to at least make him the quarterback and give him some zone read stuff and or build some true quarterback runs with him. So we're definitely getting ready for that.
Couple last thoughts here on the fluid situation of Wisconsin and their positivity rate. If I'm Nebraska, I need to know what your numbers are. And you can share those with me. They don't need to be public, but I need to know what your numbers are at and what is that number look like to trigger the red, to trigger the tier of got to shut things down for a week. And we're all anxious to see football. Nebraska fans anxious to see a win over Wisconsin. Nebraska fans anxious to see a showdown with Wisconsin. Wisconsin's had too many instances where they roll some dude out there at quarterback you have zero respect for until he beats you on play action. Joel Stave, ring a bell. Anybody but Russell Wilson, ring a bell. And Mertz looked dynamite. And we'll have that conversation with Barry Alvarez in 1 hour. Again, just to reiterate that this happened when things were sailing along beautifully this morning. Barry got in, got his cup of coffee. We had about a 20-minute talk, and guys tested and were practicing this morning. So keep it locked into Hail Varsity Radio for that. Mitch Sherman's coming up. And we'll get plenty more from Coach Lubick. You know, where is Nebraska at from a wide receiver standpoint? How close are the Huskers to having some of those young guys contribute? Alante Brown, Fleming, Xavier Betts. What's the deal with Omar? Things look like or sound like guys are getting in position to maybe contribute. The downfield passing side of thing was a focal point, too, with Coach Lubick, and some really cool thoughts from Luke McCaffrey as he took the podium as well. You can email the show. Do so, chris@hailvarsity.com. And you're always welcome to follow us and find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio or at Damon Barr. That's 2 R's with Damon. Damon, you're going to need to maybe break into your room a little early today. If we've got to white knuckle this bastard with is Nebraska going to play ball on Saturday or not? Is Wisconsin going to be over the threshold positivity rate? The Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, their report is out. We'll talk with Mitch Sherman next.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio lesson?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
1 hour from now, our chat from earlier this morning, red dial alert Wisconsin, our sit down with Barry Alvarez as he was watching practice and kind of laid out the protocols for Wisconsin and how they go about it and get a clean practice field. And you fast forward a few hours later, man, it's crazy. We say hi to Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, are you buckled in?
You know, I actually am buckled in. I'm driving, so there you go. Good that I have my seatbelt on. Literally and figuratively, I am buckled in for whatever this week has in store.
Were you concerned, even if we go back yesterday to Paul Christ's press conference when he's like, look, I don't worry about being able to play the game. Yep. Was there a glimmer of doubt you maybe had yesterday about Saturday actually happening?
Yeah, before the press conference, as soon as the reports began to surface about a positive test within the program, knowing the fact that these guys have been around each other, played a game Friday, clearly had some time off on the weekend, but football players spend time around each other even when they're not practicing and playing, and then you have the daily testing. So if this was able to slip through and you had a guy come back into the facility who was positive, you had to figure that he had been around some of his teammates. So, yeah, I mean, in knowing that the threshold is as low as it is in the Big Ten to cancel a game, absolutely. As soon as you hear about one case, especially when it's somebody who, the starting quarterback spends a lot of time around people. He's in a huddle. He's talking to his linemen. He's talking to the other quarterbacks. So not to say that, I mean, he very well caught it from somebody else. You don't know what the chain of spread is here, but a long answer to a short question, yeah, as soon as you hear about a case, there's concern.
Mitch Sherman's with us from The Athletic, Hail Varsity Radio. We were going to talk X's and O's and game plan and tough man defense. We can still do that, hoping there's a game on Saturday. Yeah. But,
yeah, it's not done yet.
Yeah.
So.
Give it 5 minutes, man. Mitch,
right.
I want your thoughts on just kind of the moment, the urgency, and the opportunity for Nebraska. Let's play nice and hope that there's a game and safety prevails, obviously, and health. That said, I mean, what Saturday mean for Coach Frost in Nebraska? Is it just game 2, like he touched on? But there's a bigger emphasis on it too, don't you feel like?
Yeah, every one of these opportunities to win a game for Nebraska and Scott Frost against a team in the Big Ten, and these two that Nebraska is scheduled to play right out of the gate, Ohio State and Wisconsin are the top two right now. One across the conference and one within your own division. You could put Penn State and Michigan in that category for sure. But all of these opportunities, and throw Iowa into that category because of how long it's been since Nebraska's done that, every opportunity is a big one. And this fits right into that category. So Nebraska has to, at some point, win a game like this and get over that hurdle. And I think the prevailing thought within the program is that when it happens, then you're going to see things take off. Scott Frost has said that. You've heard others make the suggestion to that. And the logic kind of goes, you're really going to clear some things mentally for some of these guys, these players who for whom it has been so long since they've had a landmark win. And, you could see it in moments against Ohio State. Not to say that Nebraska was ever down to the wire, a play here or a play there away from winning that game. That's silly to say when it's 52-17. But at moments in the first half of that game where Nebraska had opportunities, there were times where Nebraska met the opportunity, and then there was ultimately that time at the end of the half when it didn't, and things kind of crumbled. And I think some of that has to do with just having not been in that situation and having had success before. I think Nebraska could overcome a delay of game penalty down 17-14, backed into its own end zone, if it had had more success as a program. And when it gets to the point that it does, then those kinds of things will be easier to get past.
What were your takeaways from Saturday? Were you, if you're a Nebraska fan, what's your feedback been like with folks that read you on The Athletic? Was there more encouragement, or was there, it's still a 30-point plus loss? I mean, there's two dynamics, and there can be gray area with it. My takeaway was the point of attack on both lines, specifically applying it to what can happen Saturday against a really physical football team. It looked better.
Yeah, it was down the middle. I mean, there's a lot of, when I wrote about this Monday, about 10 reasons to be optimistic. For every 10 reasons to be optimistic, there were 10 reasons to be disappointed with that game at Ohio State. If it comes in the middle of the year, I think it trends more a little bit toward disappointment because you had some of the self-inflicted issues. Those are understandable in a first game of the year situation, and there's less margin for error always against a team like Ohio State. I think for Nebraska this year, playing a Big Ten only schedule, some of the issues that Nebraska faces internally with its own roster, and I'm just talking about experience at certain positions. The margin for error against any opponent is going to be slim this year. So Ohio State, that's magnified by several degrees. I was absolutely impressed with the way that Nebraska held its own at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, with the defensive groupings that they put out on the field, some of the versatility you saw there with guys like Ty Robinson, Casey Rogers, Ben Stilley had a good game. I thought Damian Daniels played well. I thought Keem Green came in and played well. So, and we didn't see Jordan Riley. When he gets out there, that's going to be, I think, an added asset for this defensive line. And the same thing on the other side of the ball. But you can go across the line. But Matt Farniok had some struggles at right guard, but I think there's a confidence that he's going to get it together and be a good right guard for Nebraska. Cam Jurgens had some great moments in that game. Brendan Hymas was very solid. You didn't notice him a lot, which is really good against an Ohio State defensive line. I thought Ethan Piper and Bo Wilson held down that left guard spot well. I think Ethan Piper is going to be a multi-year starter in this system, maybe sooner rather than later. And then Bryce Benhart out at right tackle did a nice job too, especially for his first start, again, against Ohio State defensive ends. And Turner Corcoran came in as a true freshman offensive tackle against some of the most talented defensive linemen in the country and held his own. So that is an outstanding sign.
Mitch, with Wisconsin, say this thing happens Saturday, is it as simple as whoever is, maybe it's Growhouse running the Badger Wildcat, maybe it's the fourth stringer, Vandenboom, all name team, but it's going to be downhill and play action, and it's still going to be a test. I don't. There's a sense I get from Nebraska fans of fear. Oh no, if you can't beat Wisconsin depleted, are you ever going to beat them? Or there's maybe some Nebraska fans saying, okay, it doesn't matter. We'll, air quote, we'll take it and just find a way to get a win against these guys. Still a huge game.
You'll take it. They beat you 7 times in a row. If you beat their third string, you take it and you build on it. It's probably not the same kind of signature win that it would be if you beat them with their best players, but that doesn't matter in the moment. So Nebraska's been there where it's had injuries and had to play backups, and the opponents on the other side wanted to beat the Huskers just as bad. So that's the situation that Wisconsin would find itself in if they're at Memorial Stadium playing on Saturday afternoon. I mean, Vanden Boom, you're not talking about a 5'6" walk-on here. I mean, he's a scholarship kid who was undefeated as a high school quarterback, 6'5". He can sling the ball. I mean, I understand it was fourth team a couple of weeks ago, but I'm guessing that he can do all right. I mean, Nebraska lost to a third-string quarterback at Purdue last year. Wisconsin quarterbacks have not really been the reason, with the exception of Russell Wilson in the one game against him. I think Nebraska played Russell Wilson. Man, I'm trying to
just once. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. That have not necessarily been the reason that the Badgers have rolled off victories against Nebraska. It's that defense, those linebackers, obviously the running game. So if those guys are there, many of Wisconsin's strengths still exist. So it's going to be a hard game. And look, if they make it through and they get to Lincoln, they're going to have a game plan. Whether it's Wildcat, whatever it is, they're going to find a way, and they're going to be, pumped up to win that game against a certain amount of odds. I wouldn't say all odds, but a certain amount of odds. The guys who are there are probably going to play a little bit harder. So by no means is anything about Saturday, if there's a game, a walk in the park.
Mitch, asking you to predict here, but as far as a decision, that all is depending on positivity threshold, and if any more Badgers test positive, that could be tomorrow morning between that 6 and 7:30 a.m. daily testing window. That could be some results tonight.
Yeah.
At the earliest, when do you think the Big Ten could make a decision? Wisconsin could make a decision.
Well, they've got to shut the program down because they've gone over that limit, and there's a lot of nuance to it, in the sense that it's not just, okay, today on Tuesday or tomorrow on Wednesday you're at the 5%. It's a rolling 7-day average, so we don't know where their numbers were 7 days, 5 days ago, or 3 days ago. That's going to impact this rolling 7-day number. Only they have the charts in the the spreadsheet that lays this thing out. So it could come any time. Maybe they're waiting for one more positive test to be confirmed, and then they're going to be over the limit, and that's what's going to make it impossible for them to play. Maybe they're already over the 5%, but they're waiting on something to come back to get that 7-day average to a certain place. I mean, we might be looking at a lost cause here, or it could be a situation where there's just an expectation that more players are going to test positive because of the numbers who have already come through in the program, and so that's what they're looking at. I don't know how far they are away from having to pull the plug on this, but the hope is with the daily testing that you're able to catch these things fast. If it happened over the weekend after a game when guys were out of the facility after a Friday night game, that might be a little bit of a hole in the system where it's harder to catch it, because I believe they're tested 6 days a week. That's the way that most Big Ten teams are doing it, or all Big Ten teams. So there's a day there, where things can maybe spread. And perhaps that is what happened here. It's hard. It's really hard to know. But I would think if we don't hear anything by this time Thursday, then that's probably a good sign.
Mitch Sherman. Mitch, you're awesome. Thanks for jumping on, bud.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Take care.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So as about 4:25 from Jeff Portrikis, Journal-Sentinel, no shutdown, no stopping officially yet by Wisconsin. Again, just to reiterate, you have Nebraska, Wisconsin potentially in jeopardy due to the positivity rate. It could be Wisconsin's call and not necessarily the Big Ten's call. So we will keep you updated. Stay tuned, and we'll figure out if Nebraska and Wisconsin are a go on Saturday. Just a reminder, coming up in about 30 minutes, our sit-down with Barry Alvarez. We talked with Barry this morning. Wisconsin Athletic Director, he kind of lays out the protocol and the testing, and Badgers are practicing this morning. So the window for Wisconsin to do their daily testing is 6 to 7:30 a.m. because they practice in the morning. We were talking, and they were wrapping up practice, so they had enough dudes to practice. But you got the Mertz situation, their stud quarterback that is done for 21 days. Wolfie, Mr. Wolf, the Wolf. He is also positive per a CBS Sports report. So this would just absolutely suck. The game may not be played Saturday. There's no official word. And I think Mitch Sherman kind of nailed it. The hole in the testing. If you're tested 6 days a week, you play Friday night, you are AWOL Saturday, or you're just away from the facility Saturday, and bang, Sunday, you've got a test result that comes back at 6 o'clock Central on a Sunday with Graham Mertz, your quarterback. So World Herald reporting they have had contact with Bill Moose. Their response, Nebraska's response right now is we are prepared to play football. Paul Christ yesterday said, look, we felt confident we're going to play. And it's not a forfeit. It's a no contest. So that is the latest. Let's get caught up on a few thoughts with some of the coaches today. 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5860. Here's the other part of this. And you do not want, as much as you want to play Wisconsin, as much as you want to beat Wisconsin as a Nebraska fan, as much as you want to end that 7-game skid, you don't want to endanger your own team. So there's no more football for you, or some of your guys, God forbid, catch it. But this is just god-awful as 2020's been. You finally get football back. You feel okay with some parts of the Ohio State game, and then what happens? You're turning your attention to Wisconsin, and it's an undermanned Wisconsin team, but it doesn't matter to you. You still want to see if you can go out and handle the Badgers a little bit. Let's hear from Coach Lubick a little bit here, and he spent some time here when it comes to the offense here. And some of those new wide receivers here. Where's Omar Manning at? Where's some of those young pups? Where's Nebraska at with their receiving core? It was all tight ends pretty much in Wandale. You need more Wandale. Are you going to have some of those new bodies, some of that new talent potentially on Saturday?
Yeah, so we were able to get some of the newcomers in the second half. I think Galante played a decent amount. Same with Fleming. And and Levi, I consider him a newcomer. And he started the game. He's a newcomer. And really, Wandale's kind of a newcomer, too. He's a true freshman last year, but I guess he's a veteran. He's been here for 2 years. This week, we're still working on getting Omar healthy, but we're hoping he can help us this week. Alante has done some good things. All those guys are getting better. Xavier Betts is getting better. They're all getting better, and we're going to gradually keep working those guys in the system and give them opportunities. But at the end of the day, when the game goes, we're going to play the guys we think give us the best chance to win.
There's some guys that are uber talented. Just how ready are they for a full boat of being able to block, knowing the playbook, playing fast and confident, and doing their assignments and not being a liability? More from Coach Lubick. Comments on Nebraska's physicality and what he liked offensively.
We were proud of the way our guys stood up physically. We won some battles, we lost some battles, but there was huge improvement from last year's game. And it helped us run the ball, and our guys protected well. We got to keep getting more consistent. We got to keep improving. But that was a step in the right direction. And we've really emphasized physical by having physical practices, and our guys took pride in that, and they showed that on Saturday.
So Nebraska, no doubt, has a unique setup at quarterback. Adrian Martinez looked good for a lot of Saturday. Luke McCaffrey was big time. And here's Coach Lubick, not only what Nebraska was able to pull off with their two-quarterback system, but just what it can do for the offense.
Both these guys, their skill sets, they're similar in some ways. They're both really good quarterbacks, but they're both tremendous athletes that can do so many different things. I've never been around that. Where Adrian, he's a great quarterback, but he could play receiver. He could play running back. Luke could play all three spots as well. So that's rare. That's really rare. And the fact that they're willing to do that and do whatever it takes for the team to win says a lot about them. And that's why they're leaders for us, too.
Last thought here from Coach Lubick. When it comes to getting downfield, Nebraska tried to get downfield passes longer than 20, but it just didn't necessarily work out that way. But here's a little bit more description of, ideally what Nebraska wants to do downfield.
When you say 1 plus 20, we just completed one. So we tried more than that. We tried more. We targeted more than that. Part of it was protection breakdown, or the quarterback, maybe scrambled a little bit early, or maybe a guy wasn't open. But there's no question. We want to take shots down the field in every football game. But in saying that, part of it is what the defense is giving you. I know, early on, I thought Ohio State did a really good job of, when those guys were playing coverage, they were playing deep, and they wanted you to earn it. And so, for example, if we're running a post route, they did a great job of staying on top of the post route, which sometimes forces you to check the ball down. So it was a combination of things. We went in there with a lot more shots than one. We'll usually go into a game with anywhere from 7 to 10 shots that could actually be over 20-yard type passes. And then part of those explosive pass plays, too, is getting to a good player in space and letting those guys create the explosives themselves, your talent. And we got to keep doing a better job of that. And, that's a work in progress.
We'll hear more from Coach Lubick. Casey Rogers had a nice game on Saturday. He's looking forward to Wisconsin, hopefully on Saturday. We'll get you updates on what's coming out of Madtown. How dangerous is the situation for Saturday when it comes to cancellation of Nebraska-Wisconsin? No new updates. Nebraska's proceeding forward like they're going to play, and they have not heard anything yet from Wisconsin officially. Our earlier sit-down with Barry Alvarez coming up.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Damon Barr. Follow us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Damon Barr. That's 2 R's. 30 minutes away, our conversation with Barry Alvarez. We talked this morning, and things were much different this morning versus things maybe being up in the air for Saturday with Nebraska. And this isn't from Nebraska. This is Wisconsin dealing with COVID numbers hitting that threshold mark with a 5% or greater positivity rate. You've got a 7-day rolling average that you also need to take into consideration. And there's a couple of different situations that you can look at this. and we'll keep you informed. I don't expect a decision today per se, because you've got that 7-day rolling average to think about. No official decision's been made on the status of the game from Nebraska's point of view. But Mitch Sherman nailed it. I mean, there's concerns. But when it comes to the Big Ten medical protocols, there's 2 different testing numbers the teams must report. One's the positivity rate, number of positive tests divided by total number of tests. You have green, orange, and red. And then population positivity rate, that's the number of positive individuals divided by the total population at risk. So how many folks got it out of your whole look? And the percentage threshold at red at 5% or greater is in reference to the positivity test rate. The population positivity rate, 7.5% or greater. So there you are with it. So our chat with Barry Alvarez, we do get into some good football. He has some nice thoughts on Nebraska and Adrian and Ohio State and just their quarterback situation. We'll hear from Eric Warfield, standout Husker, longtime Kansas City Chief. Warfield chimes in on Ohio State and Nebraska. Get his take and his perspective for sure at the secondary, right? Where are the Huskers going to be at that safety and corner spot due to the targeting? And Warfield's a guy that's pretty ticked. You've got endangered species for sure if you're playing in the secondary in college football or in the NFL. Reminder about buckling up. Nearly 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska, they're not wearing their seatbelt. If used properly, a seatbelt can reduce the risk of fatal injury by up to 60%. Your best defense in any crash is buckling up. This message brought to you by your friends at the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. You can join us, dial us up at 466-3776. Follow us on Twitter, Chris Schmidt at Schmidt_radio. Give Damon Barr a follow at Damon Barr. That's 2 R's. And get us an email. If you want to chat Nebraska, Wisconsin, if this thing happens, if I'm a betting man, I don't know. I do not know. I think Nebraska wants to play. There's some insinuation on social media that you're down to a 4th-team quarterback. Do you want to play? I think Kristen and Barry absolutely want to play. Warfield's next.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Longtime NFL vet with the Chiefs, Husker Hall of Famer Eric Warfield back with us. Give him a follow on Twitter at EAWarfield44. Warfield, you're screening me, man.
My apologies. You know, nowadays you get so many telemarketers that call your phone on a daily basis. So I actually downloaded this app. It picks up every single phone call that I get coming in. So I apologize for that.
I get the same dude leaving me the same voicemail for DirecTV from 16 different parts of the world.
It sucks.
It does. I'm happy with my service. Thank you. I'm good enough to watch college football and the NFL on my setup. So how you feeling? How are you feeling as a Husker? How you feeling as a defensive back? We'll start with Ohio State. Man, all the targeting stuff, and you know, it looked okay for a while, and then it got a bit messy with the score. But what'd you think of last weekend?
You know what? Football has, I wouldn't say completely changed, but it has changed the dynamic of big hits. You won't see anybody make it into the Hall of Fame because of their big hits and detaching the ball from the player in that manner. It's more to where they're out for the safety of the athlete. A little frustrating to see and understand what's going on the field. But when you look at the overall package of them trying to protect these players and their longevity outside of football, I do understand it. But again, when it plays a part for your teammates, or not your teammates, or the guys that you're rooting for, you're always going to be upset and disgusted by it. But like I said, it's just a part of the game. And then to do with the game itself against Ohio State, we started out great offensively. I love the drives down the field with Martinez and his confidence. And my thing, even as I said last year, he's a pretty good quarterback when he has his confidence. Ohio State's a really good team. They've been a really good team for the last 10 years since I've been watching. So they're always going to have the top 10 team to play each year. So we just have to, for one, I don't want to sit here and say we don't have the talent that they have, but it's kind of obvious that we don't. So we have to get some of those players in to where we can compete with these top 10, top 5, top 25 teams to where we're at least heading in the right direction of what we always, look forward to what we did in the 90s. And I hate, like I know I said this the last time we had this interview, that I don't like to compare teams to what we had in the 90s. It's a whole different era of football, a whole different style. But we would, I could say myself, would love to see us at least competing and ranked in a high position.
I mean, you're a proud Nebraska guy. I mean, you're rooting for him. You want him to be at that level, and it's just been a tough road back. Eric Warfield's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Eric, so what did you do for the game? I know you're down south. Do you get together with some Husker buds, or do you just kind of hang with family? I mean, how do you soak it in?
So I'm here in Dallas, and there's a sports bar here that there's a guy he moved here 10 years ago from Nebraska. He runs a sports bar, and a friend of mine ran into him. So he told him that I was here, and the guy contacted me and asked me if I could round up a few players that live in the area to come out and watch the game. So we actually had a pretty good-sized watch party for that game. A lot of fun, good to see a lot of those guys. And to mention some of them, we had Michael Booker, Joe Walker, Octavius McFarland, Corey Dixon, John Reese, Tremaine Bell, who else? Eric Strickland, I think. Yeah, he was out.
Old Strick.
So we had a big group of guys that came out, and it wasn't a good ending, but a great start, and good to see a lot of those old faces.
So of those guys you just reeled off, who could still go get 4 snaps?
None of them.
Not even you?
I can give you 2 plays a quarter. 2 a quarter.
Oh, man. Well, Tremaine Bell was a beast. He was so much fun to watch at tight end. Corey Dixon, yeah, and you mentioned some of the guys from that defense that kind of meshed with your 97 team and then played at a really high level as well.
Booker was a first-round pick for us, so he was a great player too.
Yeah, I was going there because Booker had the Fiesta Bowl and a great, great corner spot opposite Tyrone Williams, and yeah, Booker was incredible because he was in the league for a long time. He was a high draft pick for Atlanta, wasn't he? Yep.
Had a pretty good career, and knees just gave out on him. So, but outside of that, yeah, he was a really good athlete.
Well, Eric Warfield's with us, the Husker crew down in Dallas getting together for Nebraska football. Eric, what's your feel for Saturday? And, Wisconsin's not officially released anything, but three of the national writers have their sources. And we're talking to Barry Alvarez here in a little bit, and there won't be any depth chart release, breaking news on my show, I can guarantee you, but I'll ask. But are you feeling Saturday's the day that you finally get over that Wisconsin hump? And it's a tough ask because, Wisconsin may be playing a running back turned quarterback, wildcat look, or they're going with their fourth string guy. I mean, that's what it looks like as we talk on Tuesday. And Wisconsin is still going to just line up and try and murder you. I mean, how are you thinking Saturday goes?
You can't overlook a Wisconsin team because they're going to have those big offensive linemen, and they're going to have a powerhouse football team running at you on both sides, offensively and defensively. So they're no matter who they have. I saw something earlier about some of the players testing for COVID, but there's no way we should overlook this team. They've been a really good team throughout the last few years. And they put out some great players in the NFL and have had some really good teams. So definitely not one of those that we should overlook. Now, what we did at Ohio State, I think we have a lot to build on. I still think we were missing a player or two to kind of get us over the hump of being ranked in the top 25. And I think with Martinez getting more and more confident, he can be a dynamic player. Running the ball, he did really well. He made some really good throws. So there's a lot to build off of what he's accomplished in the first week. And like I said, it's a Wisconsin team that has been known to deliver some big guys that can pound it, kind of down your throat, with the running game and a good passing game. So you have to be ready 100%.
I have no doubt that the Nebraska staff and players, there is zero overlook just because of how big and burly and physical the lines of scrimmage are with Wisconsin. The fans, though, man, the Nebraska fans, best in the world, but also a high standard. And the kind of the narrative here, and it's early in the week, is, man, you got to go get Wisconsin if they're down to fourth string.
Oh, I agree. Chris, I'm one of those. I'm loyal from beginning to end, and it kind of hurts me to read some of the comments on Twitter day in, day out about the program. We've struggled. I went through the same thing with the Chiefs. Chiefs haven't won since '69, and I came a part of it. And we still didn't win then, and even after my years, I've been loyal to that program. And now all of a sudden, we have got people out of nowhere that I've never even heard of that are big time Chiefs fans, and I kind of feel like our Cornhuskers are going to be the same way. It's like we get so much bad talk about what we used to be and how we're not heading in the right directions and how many coaches we've gotten rid of and how much more time we're going to give Frost and his players and the players that he's recruiting now. I'm excited for each and every week. I'm going to scream "Go Big Red" each and every week. We can lose by 1, we can lose by 50. I'm still proud of the team that made me the player that I am and the person that I am. And on top of that, do I hurt with those players when they lose? Of course I do. I feel for them. I want them to be successful. Is it going to be easy throughout the season? It definitely isn't. And I'm not one of those that's good at speaking to kids and try to get them motivated, to get them pumped to go out there and kick some butt. That's more like a Jason Peters or a Jay Foreman type. But I'm more of a one-on-one. I can feel and understand a player's concern and his want to go out and do his best. And when it's just you don't have it, you don't have it. For either it's for that day or for that play. But I wish and hope that we can get rid of those people that continue to down talk and it seems like they're fair weather fans. They love you one week and then they hate you the next. But that's just not me. And I know we're playing a tough Wisconsin team. Whether they're down to their fourth string, they're still going to be a tough team. And if given the opportunity, we got them at their weakness, we take full advantage of it and bring out our best weapons and put a pounding on them. And if just so happens that they just happen to be the better team that day, they're the better team.
Eric Warfield's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. A few more minutes talking Nebraska, Wisconsin. What's in store for some of these young pups that got to play a half with Deontay watching the first half with the targeting, and also Cam Taylor-Britt. You've got Miles Farmer that guys staff's confident in. You also have Noah Pola-Gates, some really high-level, high-profile recruits that they're kind of waiting on their time to pop, and eventually you hear your name get called into that rotation, and you see a lot of snaps. What advice do you have?
Always be ready. You never know when your time's going to be called, and right now they have a chance to go out and prove themselves. So no matter who it is that's in front of you, just always be ready. Always be prepared. And you got a name to make for yourself. You're there to represent yourself, and then in the end, that's on the side of your helmet. So just be prepared and go out and give it your best, 100%.
I got to go NFL here before we say goodbye. Eric Warfield's with us, standout chief and Hall of Fame Husker national champion, talking Nebraska, Wisconsin. So did you ever have any one-on-ones with Ed McCaffrey?
I haven't. Well, you know what? That's a lie.
Did you DM up?
My first NFL interception was on McCaffrey. It was thrown by Bubby Brister.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. So I forget. Bubby was in Denver then, wasn't he?
Yep, and he actually came to Kansas City after that season. But he gave me my first interception. That was on McCaffrey.
Okay, so you were covering McCaffrey, and there we go. There's a piece of history from Eric Warfield picking off old Bubby.
Yes, sir.
So did you take it to the house or did?
No, it was a deep ball along the left. I can remember vividly down the left sideline, and Ed was. I mean, he's in the later part of his career, so he wasn't as fast and as dominant as he used to be. But hey, you throw me in, I'm taking full advantage of it. So
You're not
they came with a deep ball down the sideline, and I took advantage of it.
That's pretty good. So when we talk about Bieniemy and how nice he's been with Kansas City, they go get Le'Veon. Clyde's doing his thing. I mean, Mahomes pretty much had the day off in Denver last weekend. I mean, Kansas City was phenomenal. Where's the best landing spot for Bieniemy? Because he's been very patient. He's going to get that phone call from somebody. Where's the spot he'll thrive, in your opinion, here as a head coach?
I think at the rate that Houston is going with the talent that they have at quarterback, I think Houston is probably going to be the best fit for him. And I'd probably get some more players offensively throughout the draft, because losing I can't think of the guy's name at Arizona, the receiver.
Yeah, he just lit me up in fantasy. I've tried to get rid of his name.
Yeah, now losing him was big time drastic, and you know he's one of those
Hopkins kills everybody.
Yes, Hopkins, and that kind of ruins a lot. You know, that's almost equivalent to us losing Kelsey. You know, Kelsey's a big-time playmaker for us at Kansas City. And if we were to lose him right now, yes, we have a lot of other skill positions, but we know, for one, Kelsey is a dominant threat anytime he's on the field. So you hate to lose those kind of players because you put so much trust into your quarterback. But yet, you know, you can't lose a guy like that, especially when you had everything to keep him there. For me, right now, I think Houston's the best place for him, best fit for him. I think any team's a good fit for him. But for what he gets, what he's brought to Kansas City, and I think for something that he's looking forward to as to what he can do, similar to what we've done in Kansas City, is probably in Houston.
You want to go to that good situation. Eric Warfield's with us, Hall of Fame Husker, longtime chief, and many-year NFL vet. Thoughts on Nebraska, Wisconsin. Warfield, enjoy your time with your Husker buds down in Dallas for Wisconsin, and we'll do this sooner rather than later. Thanks for a few minutes.
Sound good, my friend. Take care.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. It's Nebraska-Wisconsin week, and Hall of Fame Husker and legendary athletic director and Hall of Fame coach at Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez, back with us. Coach, thanks for your time today, and I want to start off with just how good last Friday had to feel for you and in football in general. You still smiling?
Yeah, it was good to have Big Ten football back, and you feel like college football is complete now with our league back on the field and playing. And even though there are no fans in the stands, it was still good to see our athletes compete and coaches coaching.
What was that like for you going into Camp Randall without fans?
Well, as I told someone else, as they said to me last week, that'll be a new experience. I said, no, it won't be a new experience. I sit in my office every day and watch them practice. So it'll be just like watching them practice with different color uniforms.
I bet. Coach, I wanted to ask you, and don't know where you can go or where you want to go with this, but when it comes to COVID and testing, there's been some reports by the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel about the quarterback situation at Wisconsin. Can you comment or shed any more light on where things are at with your guys' depth chart?
No, I read Paul's comments today, and I'm really not at liberty to talk about any injuries with players, and certainly wouldn't want to discuss that.
Barry Alvarez with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. From a protocol standpoint, Coach, you've got these protocols released last month by the Big Ten, and you were a major part of getting football back for the Big Ten. And when you have an athlete test positive through point of contact daily testing, that'll require a PCR test to confirm the first result. What's your guys' schedule like day to day? I mean, is there a set time testing goes on? I mean, where are you at with that during the week?
We practice early. We practice in the morning. Our guys are practicing right now, so they come in first thing in the morning. I think from 6 to 7:30, they walk in and test. It's really pretty smooth how they test and how quickly they get through it. I test, and all my administrators that are going to be at the game, those will, like this week, those that would be traveling, we will test twice. We'll test on Thursday and then again Saturday morning at the site of the game. And so they'll have the results, that morning, while they're practicing. So it's been pretty smooth. Our guys have really done a nice job of executing it, and our players really appreciate it. Coaches appreciate it because it's, even the officials talk. I got word back from the officials last week how they appreciated it and how smooth an operation it was. In
a unsmooth year, are you mesmerized by the advances in medicine, just the ability to do what you guys have been doing? The Big Ten in general, Nebraska does it as well. I mean, the planning's been high level and the execution's been really good as far as the health and safety. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
It is, and the thing that's amazing is, as we started dealing with this last March, every week there's a change. It seems like daily as we're trying to think this out. Initially I'm thinking, with contact tracing, how can you have a sport like football? How could you even possibly think about playing it? And then when you get rapid result tests, then you can guarantee that you have a clean practice field and a clean playing field. That pretty much eliminates your contact tracing. So it seemed like for a while there, every week at least, there were some changes in testing and information on COVID. So it's been more than interesting.
Barry Alvarez, a few minutes with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Wisconsin, Nebraska week, and, of course, legendary Husker and Hall of Fame coach with the Badgers, athletic director for Wisconsin, joins us. Coach, with the practice setup, you've talked to me, thankfully, for a lot of years, and you've always highlighted the necessity to develop guys, get great walk-ons, but have somebody ready to go with that next man up mentality. When it comes to what you did blueprint-wise and then what Coach Chris does, how do you feel about guys that may not be starters, but it feels like or it sounds like that with your program they get a number of starter reps, or at least there's reps. How's that development phase look this year as you go into 2020 in a really weird year due to COVID?
I think it's probably a little early to judge that. I can judge the program over the years, knowing that we're going to have quality walk-ons. They're going to be screened. They're going to be recruited walk-ons, players that we feel they might be an inch short or come from a program where they're not developed well enough or have a lot of upside. Kids that really like to play football and want to be here, those are guys that are going to get better and do what you want and be good program guys. So that's what we built on. Last week I had someone from Illinois asking me about any transfers, and I said, well, we don't have many transfers. Russell Wilson was the most famous, but and maybe one of the few that we've taken over the years. That we're a developmental program. We're a program that's going to bring guys in. They may not, we'll get a few 4 stars, maybe no 5 stars, but we're going to take guys and we're going to develop them. And when they leave here, many of them are good enough to move. We got enough success, and then many have been good enough to move into the NFL. So that's how we've built the program. I think we know our identity, and we know, who we are and the type of player we have to recruit and how we have to develop it.
Barry Alvarez with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Have you seen a shift in football with that development phase? Is it a harder sell to kids in 2020 that you're really talented, son, but it isn't going to happen tomorrow for you? It's going to take some time. Is that a tougher conversation or not necessarily? What do you think?
Not necessarily. I think you have to be honest. You have to be honest with athletes, and then you don't have problems when they get. You can't make promises. As I've told a number of people and parents in particular, and we never promise anybody that they're going to start or they're going to go to the NFL or anything else. We just promise them we're going to support them while they're here, both on the field and in the classroom. Socially, we're going to be there for their support. We're going to look after them. We're going to care about them. But we never make any promises about playing time or anything like that.
Coach, what are your takeaways from Friday, game 1, and that jump from game 1 to game 2 as you guys head into Lincoln on Saturday? What were you pleased with from the football team against Illinois?
Watching games this year, with the type of year it had, it looked like there was a lot of sloppy play in the first game. And I'm not talking about the Big Ten in particular. I'm talking about the other leagues that started. I saw a lot of penalties. You can tell a lot of schools didn't have spring practice. Things were disrupted. But I thought I was really pleased with the way our guys played. I thought it was a clean game. I think we had 1 turnover, very few penalties, and not a lot of breakdowns. So I was really impressed with how our guys played compared to some other schools who maybe without spring practice and all that.
When we look at Mertz, the quarterback, what a debut for him. Amazing efficiency, the 5 touchdown passes, and he's a younger player, and he got thrust forward because of injury, and he stepped up. And are you surprised that he looked as good as early as he did, or is that just kind of goes to complement the development side again back to your football program?
Graham was highly recruited coming in. I think Paul and all the coaches were very confident in him. Jack Cohn has been a 2-year starter and won a lot of games here. I think so when he was injured, I think Paul all along was planning on playing Graham. I know the players had confidence in him. I thought he showed a lot of poise and how he handled the team. Really played with confidence, great accuracy, got the ball down the field well. It was a tremendous performance for a first game. I watched him in practice. It's hard to judge in practice, but I knew Paul felt very confident in him going into the starting game.
Coach, how physical are the Wisconsin practices? The reason I ask that is there was a point of emphasis by Coach Frost in Nebraska to really get after it and emphasize physicality just because of how brutal the Big Ten is. You've got a different era of football with there's less contact, more safety precautions, but you still got to be able to tackle and hit and be physical. How do you guys go about that?
You just have to be careful with that. You have to be smart in how many. When I was coaching, I'd go 20 minutes every day, at least 3 days a week with an inside drill, and my coaches had to back that off. That's what I was always accustomed to, back it off to where we go. An inside drill is basically live for both offense and defensive lines. You're not tackling the backs, but you're chesting up with them and butting off. But it can get pretty physical. I would say we're relatively physical. That's if you want to run the ball, you want to play good defense. I think you have to do some practicing that is physical.
What's your takeaways from Nebraska, Ohio State? Have you had a chance to watch a little bit of it? Did you see Saturday's game?
Yeah, I saw most of the game. I was impressed. I thought they were much improved, but their defense really was physical. Martinez really creates a lot of problems, and your two quarterback system. Both of them are very, they're productive and dangerous. I was impressed. I think they're a vastly improved team and a good team.
Coach, you're a longtime defensive coordinator. You were awesome at it before the head job at Wisconsin, Iowa, and of course Notre Dame. Did you do you remember an instance where you had to prepare for a two quarterback setup? And if so, how'd you go about it?
Well, you just have to know the strengths of each quarterback. You still have to have a. You can't game plan every play, and a play. A call isn't going to stop somebody. Your defense has to be sound in what you're doing, but you certainly have to be aware of the strengths of the personnel in the game and what they like to do with those personnel, and just make sure that the players, and you have to anticipate. I say think like a shortstop. Anticipate what somebody's going to do. Know your down and distance, what the tendencies are, and then play from there.
More with Barry Alvarez. Hail Varsity Radio continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Barry Alvarez with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, a thought here on the lines of scrimmage in the Big Ten, and I'm interested with your philosophy here when it comes to guys ready. Did you play a lot of young guys, or with the program, is it more of a by year 3 guys are ready? And I ask that because Coach Frost spent some time yesterday talking about not having to rely on young guys. How did you want to go about that on the lines of scrimmage?
I wanted to play the best guys.
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily an age thing.
Regardless of what class they're in.
Okay.
Sometimes you have a young player that's a better player. I think in this league, maturity helps you. I can remember back when Joe Paterno, Penn State, came into the league. We played in their first game. There was his first game, I think, in the Big Ten. Ron Dane was just a freshman then, but we had a big, typical big offensive line, and it was a heck of a game. They ended up beating us by, I think it was like a 34-31 game, a very physical game, a good game. He called me that next week and said, Barry, we're not going to be able to practice this week, and we're so beat up. I'm going to have to change up the type of player I recruit. We're going, they recruited their emphasis was on speed. Now he said we've got to get bigger guys to hold up in this league, and I think you have to understand how to play in this league. If you play, some physical teams back to back to back, you play in Iowa, Ohio State, us, Nebraska. It's physical. You're going to be beat up, and you have to understand how to practice, and you better recruit athletes that can hold up. And that goes to the maturity that you're talking about and Coach Frost is talking about.
Coach, you did an amazing job with the presentation to revisit Big Ten play. And what was that like for you? You were part of the process to kind of make another pitch to the council and presidents and chancellors earlier this year, and your message got home along with the medical experts. And was that stressful for you? Was that something that you relished the opportunity to do? Can you take us back to that moment?
Yeah. Well, I really looked forward to, because I wanted to do everything I could to get football back, particularly when I felt that it was safe for the athletes. Mm-hmm. I think Dr. Borchers from Ohio State probably had more to do with our return of college or Big Ten football than anyone. He really did a nice job in coming up with guidelines and procedures and leading that the medical group. My part of it was the scheduling part. And it's stressful. You're dealing with, I had our other athletic directors. Bill was on the committee. You had coaches on the committee. And we came up with different plans. I think we presented 4 different schedules. And we had to work with TV. We had to take a look at different time slots. The one thing that the coaches wanted was to make sure that the one thing they wanted was to be normal next year. So that meant they didn't want to play in the spring, because you have to give your athletes enough time to recover to go into next year if you want it back to normal. So, you move your schedule back. You try to figure out different schedule scenarios. You present it to, we work mainly with Fox. Mm-hmm. They have our TV rights, the majority of them. Work some with ESPN about different timetables and what worked best, and we presented 4 to the presidents and chancellors, and this is the one that, along with when our medical people committee presented to them and had all their questions answered, that was the number one thing. And then this is the schedule that they felt would work the best.
What's the ideal?
Well, it was stressful. Yeah. It's a lot of work, and you have a number of, you have a lot. You have everyone's, concerned about their own situation.
Yeah.
So to get everyone on the same page to come out with one result sometimes is difficult.
Well, not everyone's going to be happy, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Coach, what type of grandpa are you in the press box cheering for your grandson?
I told somebody the other day for the last 2 years that we think he's open on every play. Between my daughter and myself, we think he's open. Throw it to him, No, I'm pretty good. I love to watch. This is about my 9th year in a row. My grandson Joe played here 5 years before Jake came in. They played 1 year together. To sit up in the box and watch your grandson play is pretty special.
Well, yeah, I can hear you saying he's open. Did he always love tight end, or did he do linebacker, or is it just his athleticism?
I think I know somebody was recruiting him as an outside line. He's played linebacker, and he's played wide receiver. He's played tight end. He's played quarterback early on. I mean, he's a pretty good athlete. He's a 3-sport athlete, and he really, the thing that's fun for me, he loves playing.
Yeah.
And he loves his teammates. You want to coach him.
Barry Alvarez with us. Coach, we'll see you Saturday. Thanks so much for your time.
You bet. Good visiting with you.
We hope we see Coach Alvarez Saturday. Just to reset, 20-minute sit-down this morning with the Wisconsin Athletic Director Barry Alvarez. This was around 9:15, and Barry and I always chat Wisconsin week, and we either do it in the morning or right before practice. Wisconsin has shifted back to morning practices. the first part of the interview, we started here around 5:25, and Wisconsin was practicing this morning. Coach Alvarez said Wisconsin's practicing, asked him how things are going from a protocol standpoint of testing, and he kind of got into the rapid testing and the ability to go have a clean practice. So as of when we got done around 9:45 this morning, things were okay, and now, my oh my, how have things shifted with where Wisconsin's at. The Nebraska-Wisconsin game up in the air, and even had Paul Chryst yesterday optimistic and not worried about playing Saturday. So with the Big Ten leaving no room for error here with postponement or rescheduling, you have the Big Ten protocols that are what they are when it comes to red. And the reality is this: things can shift. You know how fluid COVID has been. And you have positive tests with Graham Mertz. Coach wouldn't get into their quarterback depth side of things with us at all, and I understand that. But you didn't have Paul Chryst come forward with any test results. And Alvarez, earlier in this interview, it sounded like he felt pretty good this morning with how things were. Again, did not get into specifics. So you had officials that were confident this morning, but you've likely had additional positive cases change that outlook. So how close to red and how viable is it for Wisconsin to play Saturday? That's what we're talking about here.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, we'll get that Barry Alvarez interview posted up, and pretty good outlook this morning. Things have shifted, potentially with more positive COVID cases in the Wisconsin program. And where does a team go to red? Really nice write-up. I want to give credit to Sam McEwen with the team positivity rate. And a team can test 170 people 6 days a week. And the Big Ten recommends 120 players, 50 staff. So that's 1,020 tests per week, which equals the rolling average. So in order to meet that red testing threshold with TPR, a team that takes 1,020 tests would have to have 51 positives. So you have two quarterbacks right now with staff. And Barry talked about their testing protocol in part one of the interview. Again, that'll be posted here in the next 3 minutes or so. ESPN Lincoln Twitter handle, ESPNLincoln.com, on demand. And, of course, the podcast with Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Media. Check out the full show. Good stuff from Mitch Sherman. It's up in the air right now. If Saturday happens, and the viability side of things, is it viable for Wisconsin to play? And I know there's loud groans coming from Nebraska football fans because you want to get a chance to play these guys Saturday. You also want health and safety. You don't want infections for your team. You don't want to put anyone at risk either. And you just have 5% and 7.5%. That's the threshold. But a school and program can step in and make a determination on health and safety before the Big Ten has to rule. The thing that sucks is that there's no makeup. And if you're Graham Mertz, you're out for 21 days because you tested positive once. The more in-depth test is what I'm going to call it. The non-rapid test has sidelined him for 21 days. Luke McCaffrey, dynamite on Saturday. Nebraska fans looking forward to him this Saturday if Nebraska gets a chance. And you'll hear something from Nebraska and Bill Moose, I would assume, as things play out. But here is McCaffrey here on his different roles and how he's been able to accept those.
Yeah, that was actually in high school. That was my sophomore year. That was when my brother was the quarterback at my high school. And so to be able to play with him, it was a very unique and special experience. That's something, now that I'm here, as good of a guy as Adrian is and as appreciative I am of Coach Frost and Coach Verduzco, it's another unique situation where I'm very thankful that I have those guys on my team and in my corner. And a big reason I played receiver in high school at all was because my brother was the quarterback. And now a big reason I'm playing it is because I have those two coaches and Adrian also by my side. And so to have those people in my corner on my team, I'll fight for them.
Pretty good stuff. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll run down Mike Babcock, Hail Varsity, Brad Edwards, ESPN Insider, and more thoughts. Eric Warfield, phenomenal today. Good perspective as a Husker alum. And his loyalty to the program. Thoughts on the Nebraska-Wisconsin matchup. Hope it happens. Mitch Sherman. Really good stuff from Mitch from The Athletic. And our sit-down with Barry Alvarez. It happened this morning. Things have shifted mightily. Tune into that, and we'll talk to you tomorrow with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Thanks for checking us out.